So NASA did a study on so many children, and they found that creative genius actually diminishes as they get older. And that's because they are placed in systems that do not encourage original thought or imagination. They don't encourage children to explore or go into the foray sort of imaginable possibilities. So creative genius is an innate talent or skill or beauty that we are given as children, whether we are verbal, nonverbal, whether we're autistic, whether we're gifted, whether we're typical, we all possess it as children. And it is a single most untapped resource in children that we are failing to mine and cultivate. So cultivating creative genius is simple. It's recognizing that every child is going to be born with a different outlook on life and answering their questions, but limiting it to just, why is the sky blue? That's a great question. I think it's because it's a reflection of the water and the world is 97% water. But hey, you know what? It could be a different answer. Why don't we go research it together? Creative genius is all about the questions. The question is the trigger, and it's the spark of curiosity. It's asking the question that really tells you, it's a telltale sign of the creative genius within us. And what child doesn't ask questions, right? So we know children are born with creative genius. How to cultivate it is simple. It's helping them to navigate the world around them and properly research from known sources, credible sources, verifiable sources, their responses to their questions, and then allowing them a dialogue. I say this all the time to parents: indulge them. Indulge their ideas. No matter how bombastic, how bizarre they are, that is cultivation. It's the hope and the faith and the belief that that seed you put into that soil, the conversation and the dialogue, that's watering that soil. Lighting or shining a light on their ideas as a possibility, or taking their ideas to shape them into something that could be more, that's cultivating it. So cultivating creative genius is simple. It's a dialogue. It's asking them questions back about their ideas. It's about telling them, hey, that's genius. I really like that idea. Why don't we pitch it? Put it on the internet. Why don't we post about this and see how many people would use something like this? That's a great idea. Which takes me to this wall of fame right here. This wall of fame is made up of students or children that came up with amazing ideas because they had creative genius. For example, one of the main things I always talk about is Louise Braille. Louise Braille in 1824 was 15 years old when he came up with these elevated dots on a board in order to help those who cannot see read. Imagine a 15-year-old coming up with the system we still use this very day. So Louise Braille was 15. He invented the raised series of dots that make up the Braille alphabet. Visually impaired people read by feeling their way over a raised letter, a slow and laborious process, after he was blinded by an eye injury at the age of 3. He was vision impaired when he came up with this system. Braille translated a type of communication used by the French military into an alphabet that could be easily read by the blind. Imagine, came up with an entire language for generations afterwards. This is 1824. Today is 2024. And he did it at the age of 15. Yes, this was out of necessity because he himself was vision impaired, but the most beautiful ideas come from necessity. And it's someone who gave him a chance, and now they use this everywhere. In elevators, they use it everywhere, right? We also have the Algae Mobile. We have the snowboard. So skiing was invented, and then someone said, hey, how about we go on just one ski or one snowboard? Face print. Cancer testing. 4 years ago, Jack Andraka, who was compared to Mark Zuckerberg, and he finished his sophomore year in high school, and then at 16 years old, from Maryland, invented a diagnostic test for pancreatic cancer. Before him, pancreatic cancer was undiagnosed, and unfortunately, it was very quick in taking people's lives. And he was able to come up with the diagnostic test for it. Now, the one I really love talking about is this one, the T-Pack. Her name was Kelly Rinehart. She was 6 years old, and basically the dad challenged her and her brother while they were stuck indoors to come up with an invention. And so her and her brother, and he said it was context, and her and her brother drew a picture of an invention, and the prize was for coming up with the best idea for a prototype. So the dad wanted to invent something that the kids put together. She was inspired by gun holsters from cowboy movies. Creative genius has no limits. And she drew a thigh high that would allow kids to carry their video games around. So in 2001, this industrious daughter sold the firm at the age of 9 for millions of dollars. The story isn't about Kelly. This is about her creative genius. But it's not even about her creative genius. It's about what her parents did to make her the best version of herself and cultivate her creative genius. She was 6. She sold her company by the age of 9. She became a millionaire. And all she did was she invented a deep-pocketed fanny pack or thigh holster to hold gaming equipment because it looked cooler. Imagine the fact that we are so caught up every day in trying to get to from point A to point B and fulfill all of our duties, we don't have time to sit and think. And so these kids with their creative genius, they can do anything. They can change the world. We just have to listen.